Without a vision, the people perish. Welcome to Vision Plus, a program featuring a positive outlook, dealing with everyday situations of marriage, children, and business. Believing Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Teacher, author, speaker, delighting audiences from New York to Sacramento with a heart and message for the people today. Bonnie would like to remind you of the 800 number on the screen. Please feel free to call at any time throughout the broadcast and share your concerns. Leave your prayer request and someone will pray with you. And now, teacher, author, and speaker, Bonnie.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Vision Plus. I'm Bonnie Libhart, and some of you may remember meeting Jeff Dowdy a couple of times. He was one that got a Meritorious Achievement Award in Washington, D.C. Well, he mentioned his wife a few times, and you're going to meet her now, Jill Dowdy. She goes to Twickenham Church of Christ and is the shepherd's wife, among other things. Jill, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
And mother of two children. Tell us about these children.
Yes, well, these pictures are not updated, unfortunately, but these are relevant because they were taken when we were in Greece. So this is our daughter Clark, and this is our son Grant, and this was when they were attending the St. Catherine's British Embassy School while we were in Greece, and this was the year prior to us leaving. And they are now 13 and 11 years old, and they're just a joy. They're a blessing to our family, both really good kids.
Tell us about this one.
This photograph right here was the Athens 2004 Olympics. We were thankfully there. We certainly didn't think about it when we moved there, but it just so happened that we were there at such a historic time. Athens, of course, where the Olympics began. So we took this photograph. My parents were actually over to experience the event with us. And this is just a picture of the four of us, and we got to see Michael Phelps win his first gold medal, so it was very exciting. And just one of the many special things we experienced while we were there. And this other picture here is a photograph that Jeff and I had taken when we were at the Marine Ball, which takes place every year to honor the Marines. And they... that year was after. You've been to a few?
Yes, Tony was a Marine, so we went to a few of those. I loved them. A chance to dress up and really have a great time, and it looks like you two were too.
We were having a good time,
and that was the year before.
That was the November. It's held in November, the Marine Ball,
yes,
and it was the
course.
November after September 11th. So the normal venue that we would have had the Marine Ball, that they would have had the Marine Ball, was not considered safe at that time. So we had it at the ambassador's residence. So this actually took place in the ambassador's residence.
Now the necklace is really interesting. I wish you had it here to show us closer, but what is the story behind that?
It just matched the dress.
Oh, okay, that
no
worked.
great story behind it.
Well,
I was
like
not adorned in real rubies, I'm afraid. My husband's a government
maybe
employee.
From the Moulin Rouge, and there it was.
Yes,
yeah.
well, it was the time of Moulin Rouge, and the British the British diplomats who were there, several of them, made note that it was a very Moulin Rouge sort of a homage. So,
well,
anyway.
your children and yourself going to we got to take our grandchildren to Atlanta to the Olympics when it was in Atlanta, and that was real. Oh, the crowd was unbelievable, and we didn't have any special way. You just had to wait in line like everybody else. But
sure.
But it was worth it. It was worth it to go and to an event that my grandchildren and I will always remember, because of it's just so exciting to see.
It is.
And then we were in line for when they carried the lamp around. What am I trying to say?
The torch.
Torch.
Yes.
And got to just be right there at it before it actually happen.
Well, our home was located to where we could see the stadium. Looking down, we were on a hill.
Oh, my.
And, of course, the tickets were too expensive for the opening ceremonies. But we could actually see the event happen and the fireworks and the flame go up after it was lit from our home. So it was a very, very exciting an event all together. So.
Well, we got our tickets at least a year, if not 2 years ahead of time, which they had a little break on those if you bought them long before it ever came about.
Yes.
So that was good. Now, what do you do? I know your husband you lived in Greece, and we'll hear about that, and your children were there. But what do you like to do? What are some of your hobbies?
Well, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I'm very committed to that. Even though many people go back to work when their children are teenagers, I feel that now is probably the time that they need me more emotionally than they ever have.
Yes.
So I'm very committed to that. I have other hobbies. I enjoy painting and reading, and I've done some writing over the years.
In fact, you've had things published.
I've had a couple of things published, yes.
I knew you were a writer because you called and asked me would I like to go with you sometime to Nashville to one of the writing schools, and I love that. I've been to several. Doesn't seem to help a lot. No, it's not. I haven't had a bestseller
well, there's
yet.
Two
But I
two
have
women.
had eight books published.
Well, there are two particular women in particular that are going to be speaking at that I have great admiration for.
Who would those
And
be?
I knew you would
remember?
appreciate Mary Lynn Robinson, who wrote Gilead, which was won a National Book Award a few years ago.
Yes.
And then Barbara Taylor Bradford, who wrote a book called Leaving Church, which was just about her experiences broadening and how that made organized religion, her journey through growing spiritually and how she fit organized religion and into that whole experience, that evolution of her own journey. So it should be interesting.
Yes.
I hope we're able to go.
Now, your parents came over to the Olympics when you
Yes.
were in Greece.
That's correct.
In Athens, and you grew up apparently as a spiritual family.
Yes, my parents are both, they met at ACU, Abilene Christian University, and married. And so I grew up in the Church of Christ. And my father was an elder from the time I was a teenager, and he's an elder now. I grew up in San Antonio, Texas, but my parents moved shortly after Jeff and I were married and moved to Abilene because my father went to work for Abilene Christian University.
Oh, right.
And my mother started working there as well shortly after. But they're both retired now. But they still are in Abilene. My father's an elder at the church, Hillcrest Church there. And no one's told them that they're old. They just go and blow and travel and do lots of fun stuff.
I got tickled at Tony, my husband, one day. He said, I don't want to go in that class. They're all old people. And I went to my high school reunion. I told that lady at the registration desk, I said, that couldn't be my group. They're all a bunch of old people in there.
Sure, exactly.
When I'm still young.
Well, Greeks, that's something that Jeff and I appreciated about the Greek culture is they celebrate, there's only a handful of names that Greeks use, usually either from Orthodox saints or from Greek gods or goddesses. And so they celebrate name day instead of birthdays. So they don't really put a label on age, and we think that's kind of healthy.
I like that.
Doesn't hold you back.
Let's go there.
Sometimes a number has a psychological effect on you. So I think we should, celebrate name days.
In one of the sororities I'm in, there's a lady there. She's Greek. And she has the most beautiful skin. And I said, what do you use? And she told me about the egg white and the castor oil and the whatever that she does, a routine she does. And I said, well, when were you born? Didn't want to say, how old are you? Because that wouldn't be quite as horrible as saying what year. I said, was you born like 1940? She said, I was born in 1921. She was 87 years old.
My goodness.
And we were at a family's home, and one of the guys, James Smith, was there playing some music, and she was doing an Irish jig. She could dance, and so I didn't dream in 1,000 years she was 87. But she exercises every day and walks, and she was just a joy to be around, just to see. gave me hope.
Well, Greek's second to, I believe, the Japanese have the longest, have the greatest longevity. And some attribute that to the olive oil, some attribute it to just the lifestyle, the lack of stress, although there's a lot of smoking going on. And they certainly, enjoy their glass of wine. And maybe the red wine is a good thing for them.
They're saying now a glass of red wine will help to keep you living long.
But Greeks, they, I think Americans, and many times, I don't want to overgeneralize, live to work, but Greeks work to live.
Yes, I like that.
They work so they can support their time. They take naps in the day. There's actually a national nap time, and if you're too loud, they'll call the police on you. And they generally take the entire month of August off. Quite a large portion of Europe does that, but they really enjoy their time, and they really sort of decompress. And I think that the lack of stress that they have is probably a big contributor to their longevity.
And they seem to be. Tony works with Costas. I forgot his last name right now, and that'll be not a naughty thing. But his family own a business over in Athens, but he works here because his wife wants to live in the United States. But one of the things I noticed when Tony and our son took a trip around the world, some Americans embarrass you. We were in Germany, and this guy was just having a cussing fit, and he said, "I told you to bring me ice. You brought me 1 cube of ice." And I thought, man, I didn't want people to know I was an American just to be around them, because sometimes they just act so ugly.
Yes.
Some of us, expecting you to bow to our culture rather than us fit in to whatever their culture is.
Well, we are such a large, united country that I think and for the most part, we are the same as far as our obsession with ice in our drinks and whatnot.
But I'm not
I don't
anymore.
think that we can appreciate that other cultures live differently. And I hear people in the U.S. get very frustrated when someone from another country comes and doesn't completely adapt to our culture, doesn't completely adapt to our language. So I think that we need to keep that in mind when we visit other countries, that rather than demand them to meet our standards, maybe we should respect the way they do things and maybe try to grow from it. That was probably a great thing that I learned in Greece, because I was a Texas girl and had, really, I traveled some, but had never lived outside of Texas except for the 2 years that Jeff and I spent in California when he was training for
mentioning Jeff, how did you meet him? When did you meet?
We met at church. We met in the singles class at my home church.
In San Antonio?
In San Antonio, yes.
And was he already in the FBI at the time?
So you knew? His first office was San Antonio, and he came there while I was at college. And we met in the summer, and when I came home, we started dating.
That your mother introduced you to him, or some story like that. I'm not sure. That somehow he was recommended by someone when you came home.
Well, Cindy Cook goes to our church.
Yes,
and her cousin, maybe once removed, lived in the same apartment complex that Jeff did, and her roommate sort of conspired to try to get us to go out. At that time, I wasn't interested in dating. It certainly wasn't anything against Jeff. It was just I wasn't looking for anybody to date at that moment. But our relationship, we became friends, and our relationship just evolved. And then one night, all the singles were going to eat. We'd both eaten. We went to a movie, and over the course of the evening, it turned into a date. And we had our first kiss in the church parking lot. I hope our children are watching this. First kiss in the church parking lot. And that night, I went home, and I told my mother, I said, I can't go out with him again. And my mother said, why? And I said, because if I do, I'm going to marry him. And so...
now, did he know this yet?
No, he didn't. And I told my father, and my father said, I think you're a little frivolous for him, honey, and you're a little too young. So anyway, but, God has greater plans than we do. And Jeff is, he's a wonderful man, and I'm, very blessed too. I'm so glad God put him in my life.
Do you have any apprehension when it was mentioned that he was FBI and you see those TV shows?
I really didn't. I don't know why. Maybe that's one of the reasons that God brought us together. Is I'm not really a worrier. I didn't grow up in a home that had any law enforcement or guns. We never had guns in the house. Nobody hunted. It just didn't faze me, whether it was just ignorance or whether it was just part of my nature. I've never worried as much as one might think.
Mm-hmm.
So, and another thing is I've always been willing to go. I never thought, I sort of married him under false pretenses because I thought we'd stay in Texas forever. But, I've always been willing to go where his career led us.
It's probably a good thing that you went to California for a couple of years to cut those apron strings from family and friends.
It was.
Yes, because then he went somewhere and studied the language.
Now, that was Monterey, California.
But that wasn't at the same time.
Yes, it was.
It was.
We were, Jeff was chosen to learn the language of Persian or Farsi at the Defense Language Institute in Monterey, California. So we sold our house, packed up our things in a U-Haul, and drove to California. Strangely, the Northridge earthquake had just happened days before we left, so we had to reroute ourselves off of 10 to another direction to get to Monterey. But went to Monterey, and for me it was fantastic because what's better than Monterey, California? But for him, it was, studying 24/7, and after a while, he would mumble in the night in Persian, and it was like sleeping with the devil or something. I was like, what is coming out of your mouth? But it was great. We loved it. We were part of a church that was, we were the youngest couple there, but it was a very eclectic group of people. One man had been a race car driver, and just an interesting group of people, and they just took us under their wing, and we had wonderful, wonderful memories
there. Is that
there.
where your first child was born?
And that's where my first child was born. She's a California girl. She's a California girl.
And where was your second one
Well,
born?
we moved to Houston after going to California, and shortly thereafter, my son was born.
Texan.
So, yes, he's a Texan.
Now, where's your husband from?
He's from outside of Florence,
in Alabama.
A little town, about 250 people, very small, called Waterloo, Alabama, which is actually, if you're familiar with the Trail of Tears that takes place every year, that is actually the very end of the Trail of Tears, where the Native Americans got on the boat.
His Waterloo is right there.
That's right. So he's a Waterloo boy.
Were you surprised when then you got invited to go to Athens, Greece?
Yes.
Was that the next place you went to?
That's correct.
And now you got 2 children with you.
That's right.
And tell us about that experience. When did they start to school? Did they start in Athens?
Well, they had done some preschool Mother Day Out things while we were in Houston, but we moved when my son was 2.5 and my daughter was 4. And I really didn't know what I was getting into. Really, if I had known, maybe I wouldn't have gone. But no, we were prepared. We both had to go through a certain kind of training. We went through the State Department's training for being in a diplomatic role because technically we were. He was a diplomat. We had diplomatic passports and everything. But Greece at that time, Athens, had an indigenous terrorist group called November 17th. So we had to be prepared for that as well. Jeff had to go through some serious training of how to outrun people in his car and spin around and all kinds of things. So it was kind of a strange place to be
Jeff
arriving.
Gordon of the FBI.
I don't know about that, but certainly he had to learn some serious defensive driving or offensive driving, if you will. But so we arrived, and it was odd. We were met there by the preacher from the Church of Christ that's there, which was wonderful. And were taken to a hotel, and Jeff was given a car with bulletproof windows over the course of time. We were moved to our permanent house, which had guards and things. So it was unusual, but the children were so young that they didn't really understand that aspect of it, and they were young enough to where we could kind of keep them from understanding, and we didn't
Plus,
tell
they were
people
with
that
their
Jeff,
mommy and daddy, so
Yes.
what else did it matter?
Well, and we didn't announce that Jeff was an FBI agent. We just said he was a legal attaché, which led people to believe that he was actually a lawyer for the embassy. So
and the children went to the embassy school, too, didn't
there was an American school there and also a British school, and we were told by several people who were with the CIA that they were very, very happy with the British school. So we went one day to have a look at it, and I was standing there talking to a group of women, and this one woman came up to me and grabbed me by the hand, and she said, "Are you a Christian?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "I just knew by the way you were talking that you were a Christian." And we ended up becoming very dear friends and having a Bible study together, and we're still very dear friends. She is just my spiritual sister. I adore her. And she was partly responsible for the school, but the school was a tremendous blessing for us. And they had a preschool there for my son, and they start school a year earlier than school here. They have a proper reception year, which is pre-K, that's required. So my daughter actually was bumped up to first grade, and she had not, so she skipped kindergarten. But she's a smart cookie, so she didn't mind. But it was a great experience for them.
You were there 6 years.
No, under 6 years.
Or
We
under
were there
6 years.
over 5, but not quite 5
Yeah,
and a
she
half.
would have been in the 5th or so grade, or 6th.
We moved here and she went into 5th grade.
Yes, okay.
So it was easier. There certainly weren't the hormones to deal with when she moved as there would be now. But it was a very difficult experience for her, separating from her friends. But it was really a great experience for all of us. Spiritually, the first year was the most difficult time in my life. And spiritually, it really caused me to grow because I was separated from home and family and country and language. I was really an alien in every sense of the word. And, Jeff was sent to travel 10 days after we arrived. I was up on a hill with about a 45-degree angle and couldn't have gotten down it with a car seat with a stroller or anything. And then there was an assassination of a British diplomat on the street that Jeff would be traveling to work every day 10 days after we arrived. So, by the terrorist group that we'd been warned about. So it was kind of a baptism by fire, if you will. But it was great. My children just went into the British school. They didn't have American friends. I like to say they were little Arab magnets because their closest friends were many of them Palestinians and Indians, and they just really, if there was an American around, they were the least likely for them to be friends with. But
why do you think that was true?
I don't know. I think it was just God's way of
their international.
I don't know what that's going to mean for them long term. I know it put them through they had a lot of questions. My daughter, when she was 6 years old, we came home from church Sunday night, and we were sitting at the table, and they were having a snack, and she looked at me and she said, "Mom, do Muslims go to heaven?" And I gave her some answer. I can't remember. Trying to get away from this subject. She said, "No, Mom, really." And that's pretty profound for a 6-year-old. And my son also asked, because I used to talk about when I left my friend Teresa that I was telling you about, I said, well, we'll be together because maybe our mansions in heaven will be next to each other. And he would say, well, I hope my friend Shiv, who is Indian and therefore Hindu, he said, I hope Shiv is his mansion is next to mine. So it really did caused me to think about my faith and how it relates to other faiths and why God puts us in relationships with people of different faiths. And I just hope and pray that my life as a Christian really shined and my children's small lives as Christians shined to those people and made a difference.
I love the way that Brad Cox had told about his going to lunch with his daughter, and that the person across from them having lunch was saying that I am Muslim, I'm different, and we want to maintain our own uniqueness, yet at the same time they were good friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I have always loved, and my dad, even though he was a preacher too, Church of Christ preacher, and E. Claude Gardner, and I just have so many uncles that are, and cousins, everybody that's preachers. But I learned that, I told that story, and I don't know if you were in there or not, that everybody's up in heaven and they're just praising the Lord, having a great time.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, you've heard it, I know you have. And a little group over in the corner said, who are they? Shh. They're the Church of Christ. They think they're the only ones up here.
That's right. That's certainly how many of us were raised.
He was so loving of all people that I learned that at an early age, and just got back recently from teaching in the Philippines. Now there is no more loving people than the cultures we've been to. We've traveled and spoke around the world, and I agree with you that it's just incredibly wonderful. We don't have the right to judge. Judge not that you be not judged, and
That's
all
right.
of our only responsibility is to love. Is 1 Corinthians 13 is just my children went to Crowley's Ridge Academy and learned to memorize that whole chapter about the love chapter.
Yes.
So, well, how have you observed the relationships of your children and other children around them when they came back? How did they relate to this culture shock of the United States?
Well, my friend who is Indian, she grew up in Nigeria, and she's made many moves around the world, speaks 6 or 7 languages. She told me when I was preparing to move, she said, Jill, the children are going to be great. They're going to acclimate so quickly. You're the one you need to be worried about. And those
That's
words
back
rang.
here. Great
Yes, when
to
I was
come
moving
back.
So
Yes.
those words really rang true. The children, children are children. By God's grace, they acclimated very quickly. The school, we really prayed over the decisions of where we were going to live and the school they were going to go to, and that's just been a real blessing. But the ambassador told Jeff prior to leaving that it's probably going to be an experience they won't fully appreciate until they're older, and that's kind of how I feel right now. For my daughter, the move was very painful, leaving her friends, and the idea of starting over again does not appeal to her. The idea of saying goodbye does not appeal to her. My son's maybe a little more open, but they do, back when Barack Obama was running for president, there were a lot of things going around about him being a Muslim. And some of the teachers, unfortunately, at a public school would talk about that, which was not appropriate for school. However, when my children heard it, that was not what made them not like Barack Obama, because they've known Muslims. And they thought, well, so what? That's such a scary word for people. But for my children, they've loved some Muslims very dearly. And so I appreciate that about them. And that is something that I can see now. But I know God will use those experiences later in their lives, however He chooses.
It's time. Tony's just going to make us shut up soon. So what I wanted to ask is, what did you write about that were published in those 2 articles? What was the titles?
That's quite involved, because one of them was about my experience in Greece, and just the spiritual growth that took place there, and another one was more. It was a movie review on the film Walk the Line, and I've always felt a connection to Johnny Cash and his story, because I've had similar incidences in my own life. So I talked about the movie, and I also drew some parallels to my own life, which is for another time and another story. But Bonnie, thank you so much for having me here. I appreciate it.
Wow. I hope you want to hear more and let us know. You can call the toll-free number 877-823-6886. I think that's running at the bottom of the screen. And you've had an opportunity to get a taste of what Jill Dowdy had to say, the little shy, reticent person she told me about, and I don't believe a word of it. And the wife of her husband, Jeff Dowdy, the FBI, that just won the Meritorious Achievement Award in Washington, D.C., and we're happy you joined us. I'm Bonnie Liphart. Thank you for watching.